President Joe Biden just signed an executive order aimed at protecting access to abortion. The measure helps women who want to travel between states to get an abortion. It's the second executive order Biden has signed meant to safeguard reproductive rights since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade back in June.
I commit to the American people that we're doing everything in our power to safeguard access to health care, including the right to choose that women had under Roe v. Wade, which was ripped away by this extreme court. But ultimately, Congress must codify the protections of Roe as federal law. And if Congress fails to act, the people of this country need to elect senators and representatives who will restore Roe and will protect the right to privacy, freedom, and equality.
And reporter Nick Harper is in Washington. He joins me now. So, Nick, what more can you tell us about this executive order that Biden just signed?
Well, Arthi, this was signed off the back of the first task force meeting, an interagency meeting specifically set up to look at reproductive rights and access to abortion treatment. The president had some very harsh words for the Supreme Court. He has had lots over the last few weeks, but during the course of this discussion, he said that the Supreme Court had unleashed chaos and uncertainty on the country, that it had created a healthcare crisis, and as we heard just there, that women's rights to abortions had been ripped away. This new executive order lays out a few different provisions, in particular helping women who travel out of state to get an abortion by giving them easier access, by allowing the Department of Health and Human Services to access Medicare waivers, essentially providing the money to make it easier for these women to travel to get the abortions. Women who live in Republican-led states where they're restricted from gaining abortion access. It'll also allow healthcare providers to be more rigorously checked to make sure that they are complying with federal law and that they're not denying or delaying medical treatment to women who need it. And it will also collect data to evaluate the impact of what Biden called the healthcare crisis on maternal health. This being the second executive order in just a month. We are seeing progressive Democrats really trying to push the president to do as much as he can, but there is this worry with even this second executive order now in effect that these actions are in themselves quite limited. Arthi?
So you spoke to this, that this is the second executive order that Biden has signed that tries to protect abortion rights. How much can the president do? And you touched on this as well, given the Supreme Court's decision to give states really the power to make their own abortion laws.
Yeah, that's the problem, because states have their own right, their own ability to make the laws. There's now very little that the president himself can do. So these are ways to try and put in provisions to make it easier for women to get abortions, or perhaps put funding in place to allow them to do so, but they're not making any major changes. These executive orders aren't rewriting the rules of the land. To do that, the president needs Congress to act. He spoke about that, saying that he wanted to codify it into law. The problem is the Democrats don't have the votes to get any new laws passed through Congress. And that's why he's urging voters to go to the polls in November's midterm elections and vote in pro-abortion lawmakers. We saw just last night in the state of Kansas a referendum that was held to see whether voters wanted to restrict abortion access. They voted against it, something that is being seen as a big win for pro-abortion advocates in this Republican-led state. The president spoke about it, saying that it was a decisive victory, and also saying that really this should be an opportunity for women to look at what has happened in Kansas and remind themselves that they need to go to the polls in November. They need to vote if they want to have this abortion access put in place for the longer term and not have the states decide what can and can't happen.
Thanks for this, Nick. That is reporter Nick Harper in Washington.